Blip. And vent. And we are now up and running as I solemnly remove a very loud noise from my stream.
As we wait to go live.
And we are live.
Okay.
It's probably going to pull up my full account.
Alright. Give us an intro, Moo.
Yeah.
What you got?
Let's see. I'm in the process. To ignore the messy start there. Is roll 20. Yay! It was OBS. It was doing it. So welcome to the Phylactery podcast, a podcast on where a bunch of dumbass souls talk about Dungeons and Dragons and all things TTRPG. And today's podcast, we talk of character creations and what drove us to create such characters. Unfortunately, one of our intrepid players cannot be with us today, for Yoshi is being used to power the Phylactery today. So, the gang's all here pretty much, bar one player. So,
He'll have his day in the sun soon enough.
yeah, eventually, life things get in the way. And my hair is a damn mess, as it always is. So, I guess we'll kick off pretty much some introductions, I suppose.
Yeah. Just a request. How about you add some chairs to the phylactery?
I'll do my
around,
best. I'll do my
saying-
best.
Even fooling around gets tiring.
Hey,
Alright, so since everybody's all lined up, I guess for the one viewer, hello Dainty Flan.
As always.
I am I go by my hand on the internet, J Rook. And my character is Spitfire, or as everybody calls him, Spitz. The joke is that He overestimates himself in this event. And, half orc, pugilist, criminal background, chaotic neutral alignment.
There's gonna be a quick
Now, when
flash
I
of
was
the
making
Discord in
spits, I
stream.
wanted to go. Yeah.
I'm gonna
When we
move
were
the
talking
Discord.
campaign 3, we started off with thinking about Giphy Glyph's rule set, which I found on Reddit one day. And we decided to go something more hardcore for our third campaign. Mostly because, like, in comparison, for campaign 1, we were basically the heroes,
Mhm.
and we jumped the shark a little bit. Campaign 2, we were more, I guess, anti-heroes,
Anti-hero.
and we somersaulted over that shark. Like, seriously, somersaulted over that shark. I think we actually did that once in the campaign.
Yes, that did happen. Very early, I think.
So we decided that for campaign 3, we would go perhaps a bit more low to the ground. Less power, more grit. And part of the idea was, well, for one thing, we wouldn't walk around with enough healing to revive a army platoon. In fact, our outside of our very very lovely paladin Henry, we in fact have no healing at all whatsoever. So I'm really just counting this section down until somebody drops for good. But
Use those fate
enough
points.
about our history. We'll get into that in later episodes, I suspect. Well, idea I had for Spitz was when I stumbled across the pugilist class on DM's Guild. Basically, the pugilist is ideally a rough and tumble character, more akin to like the thug or performer archetype, whereupon they've had been dealt a shit hand in life, and so in turn use that for something more to make them stronger. But when it comes time to fight, they're they're a bit of a monk analog, but with a focus on strength and constitution as opposed to dex and wisdom. See, a pugilist, I suppose you could think of it as being a tankier monk. Although, in this campaign, we made a slight adjustment to how the pugilist works, in that I have a D10 hit die instead of a D8 as well. It made no sense to any of us at the time. So, when I said what kind of character I would Spitz to be, I thought of he's you know he has a criminal background because he joined a gang when he was young to survive the streets. I thought about giving him something more of a bit of like a Rocky thing going on. Mainly train, become something better through the power of being really good at punching things. While he's not high enough level to pick a fight club, which is subclass options yet, I'm definitely going for I believe it's called the squared circle, but essentially it's more the professional boxing end of pugilism. Counters, knocking dudes out with that one big punch. So that's like the mechanical information. Now for background, damn, I saw what you posted there, Moo. Now as for Spitz's background, I decided that it'd be interesting. See, none of my protagonists have ever had happy childhoods or current family situations. Well, well, Vincent's all right. So I kept this theme going because to me, a good character includes yes, their parents. This does mean that you open yourself up to having to thrown in your face by a DM at a later point in time. Considering that Moo murdered one of my sons in the previous campaign, you could say I'm not a very smart man.
That still hasn't happened technically.
So Spitz was, he had the idyllic pastoral life initially. Orcish mom, human father, so a bit unusual, but under that lifestyle, he, well, chafed. Always had a complaint, was always upset, liked to shout, And the problem is,
Sure.
he took after his mom. She's the exact same way. And they basically bounce off each other. I wouldn't call it abusive per se, but I would definitely say that if he had a more tender upbringing, he might have been a different person.
Mhm.
Eventually, he just got fed up and grabbed some stuff and ran off to Anir, which is basically, I'd say Chicago.
Kind of. That sort of feel ish. Gangs of Chicago.
Basically, yes. Anir is Kagarin, Chicago. Lots of gangs, lots of fighting, broken up into different districts. And well, he came into his own in this harsh environment. However, what Spitz liked to do, aside from, I guess drinking, was that he liked to train, he liked to fight. So one day, he wants to become something, bigger, like maybe a star in an arena, or maybe he just wants to be known as the biggest badass at the local fight club.
Mhm.
I mean, my goals for the character at the moment are for him to, well, besides being it to level 2, where I actually have Moxie to work with, would be for him to perhaps, well, either, again, become the toughest guy at a fight club to, well, become an accomplished brewer, because, he likes to drink, or should he fall, for it to be appropriately heroic.
Mhm. Plenty of plenty of development points, and as you rightfully say, opportunities for me to stab you in the back with a knife you've literally handed me. So yeah.
Um, Here's the thing. In order to make, here's the thing. The way I see it, if you give, well, it has to be a DM you trust.
Yeah. Oh,
I
of
mean, it
course.
took a while. Yeah.
I'm
I mean, Moo
trusted with
has,
quotation marks.
yeah. Actually, I trust Moo to make good use of my history and backstory when he can find it, but I do not trust him with power scaling.
Yeah, that's the
True
man.
there.
Hey, I'm doing well so far. Just the
Mm.
bear. Bear fucked up.
He has gotten a lot better in his defense.
Oh yeah, he has.
Yeah, from year one up to now, looking good. Looking great. So yeah, that's an introduction to Spitz as a wayward development. You just want to introduce yourselves and the next character in our little repertoire, as it were.
Karanar, would you like to go?
Sure, I'll have a go.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeeves.
This voice belongs to Dr. Jeeves.
Mhm.
I play Coronar, the smith, supposedly also the leader of this group. Mainly because, I have to work and they need money. So they are employed by me. Coronar started out as an idea. I wanted to have a character that was based around a skill. Usually, when you have a background, you gain some kind of tools or custom skill, and most characters just abandon them at level 1. I actually wanted that to be the main focus of my character. So, I'm the party smith. I make and create weapons. That's also my character's goal long term, to create as many weapons as he can, test them out before selling them off. To do this, he is a fighter class, and he'll subclass into champion once the time comes there. Because what better way to wield weapons than to champion your own weapons before selling them off with quite a bit of profit. So that's where I started my character. I am a half orc with a human father and a orcish mother. Most half orcs have their fangs growing from their lower jaw. Mine are growing from the upper jaw instead. Jaw, not jar. Jaw instead. I have mainly human features, but some decent orcish strength behind them. Not sure what else to say. I have an incomplete backstory. I find it very easy to work towards my character's goals, but I rarely have any idea where my characters come from.
How to just hand me a bunch of blanks and be like, try, try me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I'll
but
figure
I'm
something.
okay with that.
I'll figure something
If
out.
Mook comes up with a great idea, then I'm all up for it.
I'm coming up with some stuff with some of the stuff you've given me. I'm working on it.
Hmm.
It's a plan in action, and it's starting to take shape slowly, just slowly. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm gonna try and focus on for Cornars, especially in the town that you've now arrived in. There's a lot of opportunity for a sort of side quest, a personal quest for you to find more creation diagrams and to be able to craft in the field a little bit better and find like some equipment that will allow you to smelt metals out in campsites. So it'll be useful.
That'll be fun.
It's going to be a nice little tip in the right direction. It's a roaming smithy. Yeah,
That's gonna be fun.
I'm hoping so. Yeah, that just leaves the trusty Kenny to announce himself and the character he plays.
Indeed, I am Kenny, or Blackfire, playing the character Henry Dalvis, who is a mountain dwarf uh, who doesn't know who his actual parents are, but considers his actual parents to be the lovely meadow couple in, I want to say Liberton, but that's not it. What's the
Lindenwood.
town? Lindenwood. There you go. Uh, so with Henry, I kind of made him because in the past couple campaigns that we've played, all of our characters came from very separate backgrounds, and I wanted campaign 3 to be something where at least a majority of the group naturally came together and came together in a point where when we started the first episode, we would, generally everybody would know each other. Just to skip that awkward phase, which I don't know anyone that really enjoys the awkward meetup phase, but it's generally just like awkward no matter what. So
Yeah.
we kind of avoided that. So I took that kind of thought into process. I talked to Jeeves and Coronar, or which is the same person, and Spitz and Yoshi, who is Lucius the Pantherian, um, and kind of tried to figure out like what sort of niche or part of the group Henry would fit into. I decided that I wanted to go like a paladin, true tank sort of thing. So me and the GM Moo worked on a kind of paladin offset class that will work mechanically more like an MMO tank, where I'll actually be able to, like, aggro will be a thing essentially in fights, which is nice because I didn't like the fact of trying to tank before and then there's no way as a tank to really like force things to hit you. So as a backstory wise, Henry grew up very simple, modest country life under the meadows, was raised to be a very good child. Some stuff has happened in his past, which I'm certain we'll get to within the campaign. Uh, but he certainly had a better upbringing, even with the dark things in his past that than you would expect. And then he moved out to the city, joined a gang, and that's where I started having a lot of fun with Henry because I want to incorporate that wholesome lifestyle turned gang member and kind of keep aspects of both as he goes throughout the campaign. which I think I'm doing an all right job of. But there's only been a couple sessions so far.
Mhm. It's, Henry's
Basically,
definitely
he's just going through life trying to, if he has a question, he'll ask a question to an annoying level, especially because the cat doesn't want to answer. That's fun. And and he just goes around and tries to be as polite as he can until people aren't polite, and then he'll politely intimidate you or crack you over the head with his fucking club.
Ain't that a fact?
He's a good boy with a tough streak.
And suppose that just leaves my good self. I am the Dungeon Master Moo, the voice of many NPCs, much to the chagrin of every single player in the world. Destroyer of worlds, hander out of potions, and that is my job. That is it. You get no backstory. That is it. But yeah.
Oh, which ones are your favorite characters from previous campaigns?
As in player characters or NPCs?
NPCs.
NPCs? Out of every campaign, it's gonna hurt. Campaign 1, definitely Huri and Galder, or the Hunter God, as you roughly know him. He was definitely one of my favorite NPCs to use, because he had just that really intimidating stature, but that sort of terrifying relationship he had with his wife was funny to me, and I thought if I could go more in depth with him, I definitely would. I really would. But a really high contender against Huri was Raja, who is definitely just a nice person in the horrible events that were occurring for you guys. In the second campaign, there's a lot of NPCs. That it's either Jessica Tanner or it was Tank, who are my favorite NPCs. Just the character that they had, just personally. I just wish I could go a bit more in depth with Tank. Jessica, I was happy enough because she was just designed on the fly to be there. Like I was like, who's the captain of the guard, just in case they go and find her. There she is. It's your accent and comes in, goes only my lovers, and brings you in, makes you investigators in a couple of disappearances. In this campaign so far, favorite NPC, don't have one yet. I haven't really sunk my teeth into that. Maybe Boomer. Boomer is always a good option to start with. Just a crazy dog with magic. Yeah, that's about as far as I can tell. A lot of developed NPCs, but it's the ones that don't have much to them but just have that charm that really make it memorable to me. Hopefully make a lot more memorable ones along the way. As for building upon these characters, as for now, I mean, it's for you guys, it's a plan of the storyline, which at the moment you're in a nice little node where you can go in separate ways. I think I'm gonna try and keep you in this town as long as I can.
Good luck.
Oh, what's gonna happen? I mean, I've already started it. It's like, oh, you're gonna have to wait the 2 days for your armor, and maybe a week for your map.
Yep, that's about as long as you're gonna get. After that, we're headed out.
Yeah.
I hear a war is coming close. Run!
Yeah, we decided we're gonna go back to Enir, go past it, and sail just south.
Yep.
Where are you gonna go? There's nothing south.
Well, we'll find something in the middle of the ocean. I'm sure there's an island.
Well,
somewhere.
if it's south, then the world is circular. Therefore, we'll just end up north somewhere else if we go down far enough.
You'll end up maybe in Glasses if you head in the right direction, but none of you guys have ship proficiency, and don't probably have enough money to rent a ship for a few
We said
days.
we were gonna use a ship. We can get a door so much cheaper.
Don't let go, Jack. Don't let go. Fails death save.
I'm sure we could modify. Look, we have Coronar, the great starting out smith of our times.
Can you build a
Surely he
door?
could figure out how to make the hand cart float, and then we'll just float that motherfucker out in the sea.
Yeah, that cart is just secretly
I think it's
like the heart of the party.
I'm just
Cart
we would
waiting.
not-
is the phylactery.
Listen, we use the 4 wheels, yeah, we attach them together, make them rotate at the same speed, and we use them as a water wheel that those olden ships had,
Oh god.
those river ships.
Gonna
We're
replace
just gonna use that, right? And then we use the rest to make a small platform for us.
see,
Have fun.
there you, see, that's why you're in charge of this campaign.
Mhm.
All the good ideas. That is interesting the way like group dynamics work out because like we had like a hard leader in the in campaign 1. We had a soft. We didn't really have a leader in 2,
Mhm.
unless Atlas counts. But
I
honestly,
wouldn't count Atlas as a leader.
yeah,
That
we
was the
would just
intention.
oh yeah, we would get into it with him all the time, and also he basically do whatever we told him to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Then he
And-
cashed in all his chips,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a doozy. Let me tell you.
And even with a like bona fide leader of the group, everybody usually has their character's personalities set
I mean,
to like if they want to do something, they will go off and do it, which
Mhm.
is
Yeah,
always
Oh,
nice.
absolutely.
and for everyone who had the title of boss, we never gave orders or anything like that.
no, it's more like you're pretty much the front man. What do you think? Should we? And that's kind of like they're not like the soldier type of leader. They're more like an aspect of, is this financially worth the trouble, and should we
Yeah.
do it, and is it worth our time? And at the level you guys are at, pretty much being served a bottle of wine worth 100 gold is a lot of money, and it'll probably be the only money you make for a while. So,
Yeah, especially considering I spent, then somehow got back 50 gold and a massive drink.
yeah.
That clutch nat 20.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be I think developing your characters in a way that I think I'm gonna try continuing doing is that sort of character driven sort of timeline. I'm gonna try and go a little bit more in depth with you guys privately
like,
and just see where you want to go.
Yeah, just no big arch evil thing to deal with.
Nope.
Just a bunch of people doing their best to survive essentially a war.
Yeah, it's pretty much what this campaign's about. There is the overarching danger. There's not a big bad guy. As of yet, there will always be a big bad guy that has been wronged by you. And surprisingly, Bright is on your side, neutrally. And I don't know
Which-
why he would be, given what you've put his host through. Or, sorry, that Lucius put his host through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't put that evil on me, alright?
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, hopefully in this campaign we get to actually choose our choose our bad guy this time, because basically the hands were a fight we picked, which is why I much prefer fighting him over like Gorvax. Because
Yeah.
Gorvax happened to us.
Yeah, because Yoshi opened the damn box.
I'm noticing a pattern.
Yeah, I wonder why. But I think having the basically like choose your fighter, and it's like, yeah, go ahead. End of the day, if you've got an objective and someone's in your way and they start to pick up on it, they're gonna start figuring it out. And I think there is going to be a nice little turning point, maybe next session when the wine heist begins. Pretty much.
I thought we were trying to protect the wine, not steal it.
I mean, you're stealing it back from the people that are trying to steal it, so you're technically heisting the heisters.
Now you
Heistception.
see,
Here's the
you
question.
see,
though.
that's
Is it a
called
crime to steal from a criminal?
reappropriation, Moo. Very
Mhm.
important distinction to make.
Here's the question though: is it a
Reappropriation.
crime to steal from a criminal? That which the criminal stole from you.
Well, did steal from you guys. You stole from Vankin. It was actually quite a fun NPC. I just sort of jawed up on the fly. And I was like, yeah, here's the barkeep. Oh, make it a tabaxi. Why not? Big lion tabaxi.
He's a monk.
No. Vankin, like, in the time that you guys spent doing stuff in Tiberton, I was developing backstory for Vankin in case you want to know anything. I was like, type, and just think. I'm like, yeah, that works.
Don't tell us yet.
I thought, yeah, I'll do that. And just yeah, that's a difference between developing a character for you guys. Like player character is a completely different story where you've preset a backstory, where an NPC is basically just created and then just stuck that and can be adapted to a situation. So it's great.
Yeah, it turns out we low key make contact with like the shadiest dude in Tiberton.
Vankin's a good egg. Not really. He's really not.
Yeah,
no
he
one
got disqualified from good egg status when he waited till I started drinking that giant ticket until he was 50 gold.
Ah, you've robbed me.
Capitalism.
Capitalism. Yeah, I just.
It was just pride and spite that got Spitz to finish it.
Yeah, what? I don't know, like what your guys' takes on character creation is. Like, what's like the thought process you guys go through? Is it like objective, or is it like you see a piece of media such as like a character profiles there, and then you work around that? Is that what you guys do?
Well, for me, it's a bit like I call it cherry picking.
Mm-hmm.
The first step for me is to well, first I have like an idea for a character to just come to me once in a while. They're always like floating around in my headspace or written down somewhere.
Mhm.
Most get used as NPCs. Although I'm still hoping one day to make use of Joe Fresh, the head of the Henchmen's Union, but
Mhm.
that's unfortunately just for superhero games.
Mhm.
Shame.
Could show up in the next
Basically,
campaign as a supervillain if you wanted.
yep, totally. But Spitz was kind of sitting around in my headspace for perhaps like 6 to 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like before we started properly with campaign 2.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to games like D&D, I then look for something I think would work for the character in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically the soft-hearted, rough and tumble thug,
Mhm.
which is I suppose you call an archetype for Spitz, has been hovering around in my headspace, yeah, for like 6-8 months.
Mhm.
Then when I get the opportunity, which is this game, then I look for which rule sets would work. I'm like, yeah, this will do. Because between you and me, Moo,
Mhm.
if you did not allow me to use Pugilist, I was just going to probably just save the character for later and go with the Witch.
Mhm.
Which, yeah, the Witch is, well, Binder or Witch, essentially. Think of it as, young woman who is basically raised by hags and kind of crazy. She's my backup character.
I did develop stuff specifically around that character as well, just to make sure in case I looked at Pugilist and I went, yeah. But
Yeah.
I do like the class. It is very much a nice, fresh take on like a beefy monk, essentially, and it is good. It's, rough and tumble, pretty much like this campaign.
Yeah, like, granted, I made Spitz before Henry was fully developed,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially, Spitz is very much the pugilist class allows you to be super like a tough guy who can take punches, give them back, but notably does not mean you have to be, like mean or an ass. It's just there are people who've had hard lives but turn their tough times into a new form of strength.
Mhm.
So essentially, I wanted originally Spitz to be like this super angry character,
Mhm.
you know, with a hair trigger temper, easily pissed off. But then I thought about it.
Mhm.
I was like, then why the hell am I playing a pugilist and not a barbarian?
Yeah.
Which would make more sense.
Yeah, there's.
Then I thought about it. I thought about how I wanted him to kind of have his, like, you know, journey to greatness, this Rocky Balboa become something greater kind of story.
Mhm.
I thought about it. I was just like, what would make this character compelling and not annoying? Well, he won't explode on his friends, will he? I mean, yeah, he has pride and a bit of an ego, but he is mature enough to handle, you know, being teased a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I imagine having too much attitude will just get you killed at some point.
That that raises a good point about like character to class distinction. You could have a character that you want to play, but you can't find the right thing. But if your DM or GM looks at what you think will fit that character and they sort of go through it and maybe even nix a few things or change them, that's the best way to do it because you're both getting the benefit of being like you're getting a good player like game master relationship whilst developing a character that that player wants to play and will continue to play it and enjoy the time that they're doing it. Because otherwise, you get people that'll try and do the suicide run essentially, and I don't like that idea. I don't think
Yeah,
that's ever happened in our campaigns, has it?
Not in ours.
not
No,
that
I'm
I've
not aware.
noticed. No.
It's definitely something I'm kind of proud of so far. I don't think I've had a problem with it.
Granted, suicide run is not the kind of thing I would do anyway.
Yeah.
Like if we're still rolling stats, I just rolled garbage stats. I would not play Spitz, but I would pick another character,
Yeah, like
and I would try my best to take them to the end.
yeah.
Like in truth,
You
I'm
flashed it
actually
both campaigns and made it all the way to the end. Daron was the
with
only survivor of the second from the original party.
True.
yeah.
Well, Sebastian's kind of brain dead, but yeah, he's dead.
Sebastian wasn't even the original character. That
Yeah.
was Aiden.
I know.
Sebastian was the next character. Yeah, Yoshi goes through
I can't-
Yoshi cycles through his characters.
Yeah, it's like a Russian roulette, and it just keeps spinning, and it's a fully automatic pistol instead.
Yeah. Although I admit I don't entirely expect them Spitz to make it to the end simply because, like Vincent and Daron had, like a better term, low risk fighting styles. They, you know, shot
range,
people at
mid
range.
range, and now you're close and personal.
Up close and personal, but that's actually worked out for me pretty well so
I
far.
mean, so far you've been hitting damn well. You took out a lot of creatures. Those twig blights weren't meant to be a big threat. I was terrified for Henry. I was like, "Fuck!" He just rolled in that one, and he went, "Oh no, I'm dead." I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah. Oh no." It's like fate point. All good. I'm like,
Yeah. Hey, fate
fucking
point,
waterfalls being swept away.
Having those death saves last until your next long rest,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't a 8-hour rest in our campaign,
Yeah.
that's something that will kill characters.
Yes.
Yep,
we're
it
not
it
careful.
will definitely flavor our decision in the future, which honestly is a bit exciting for me. Because
Absolutely.
on the one hand, while I do accept that this will likely be the campaign that will break my streak,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm
Good
so
break.
excited to try it anyway. Because in part, sometimes characters just die unceremoniously.
Yeah.
At the very least, even if Henry's death did take,
Mhm.
I think it would be suitably heroic. He died protecting his friends.
Yeah. That's
No
what
shame
his
in
job
that.
is. That's what he, as far as I'm aware with Kenny, it's what Henry is designed to be. And like once he hits like third level, it's gonna be so much tanking. It's so much tanking. It's like
Yeah, Henry very much was designed to come into this game to be the person that takes the hits.
he
Like
is this campaign's
at this
Dotron.
low level, it's really hard to do it
Mhm.
because I don't have a whole lot to work with, and I'm unarmored.
For
But
now,
you know, we're getting that fixed.
it's getting
We're
fixed.
working on it. Well, which is good because if your death would have taken, I'm not sure what I would do with Spitz after that.
It'd be
Yeah, that
certainly
would-
an interesting character.
That would break him on some level.
What were you saying, Jeeves?
That would put a whole dent in the campaign, having someone die at level 1
Yeah.
4 sessions in,
What-
when you're deliberately playing a slow campaign.
Well, 6 sessions in, but
Yeah.
yeah, that would have been. Oh, goodness is. But now we have to eventually throw down with, well, not one but 2 fateful creatures, so that, well, Yoshi and Kenny can have a bit more breathing room.
Mm-hmm.
Because yep, and given those rules, you can get fate points back, but you need to face a fateful creature, and they're the kind of creatures that are super tough. Well, they could also be awarded by the GM for any reason, but
I've made like lists of your character's goals and said, okay, if they achieve certain things, they might get a fate point. There is a chance, but if you beat like a fateful creature, then yeah, you will get.
yeah, just like for the viewers though, don't expect us to have any significant plot armor because I'll tell you this straight up, Moo has killed a lot of PCs over the years.
Yeah. One in particular, because I don't like people casting daylight in the Underdark.
Yeah, we have
Definitely not.
issues with that character.
We had a lot of issues with that character. Everyone
That's-
else.
Also, actually, it's less with the character, more with the player.
Yeah, the player. The character
Yeah,
itself
we-
actually
we-
is not a stupid idea. I
The
kind of
character was-
admit that my tertiary character for this campaign is in fact a psychotic druid.
I like that idea.
Uh,
I mean, you'll play it better, I think. Or that
Oh,
that I don't think it was the
Basically-
character as full. Like the idea behind it was good. It was not executed brilliantly. Maybe
Yeah,
we're
if you-
just not seeing it right. Different kind of group
Yeah.
than us, I think.
Yeah, like I definitely say for the Saturday morning cartoon villain, Psycho Druid will definitely be my character. I just make creepy. I'll just like my plans currently just make creepy effigies. Just put them outside of people's houses to fuck with them.
There are a lot of curses that dryads will use like that. They'll leave like a cow skull on a stick and carve people's names into it and curse them. And that's what Melia used to do when she was a lot younger, before before David was even alive. She was doing that shit. She was like, "Yeah, fuck you."
Yeah.
Actually, come to think of it, you know what? I'm gonna retract my statement for my favorite NPC. Melia was definitely my favorite NPC ever.
That was fun.
She
Yeah,
was
she-
fucking awesome.
She was fun. She was fun and super competitive, which to me is always which to me it was hilarious.
Yeah, I think
Be-
that.
Normally, I think it's a little sus when when PCs build into their backstories like a girlfriend, especially when it's a dryad. But you and Kenny did it really well.
Yeah, I think there was the perfect balance of that loving relationship and then that almost domestic conflict that happens. You know, what's the perspective of the person that is left behind? And you found out what it was. It was as soon as you can contact that person, they're angry because they thought you died. It's like, yeah, we just went to the plane of fire. Yeah, you were gone for like 3 years. Like, oh.
In fairness, Kenny did die a few times. We all
did.
did, but it's D&D, so it didn't take.
Yeah, especially at the level that you guys were playing at that point, to like level 30, where death is just a blink of an eye and a couple of coins out of the pocket. That's all it was.
Yeah, it could be, although I do think we tried to avoid the death revolving door as best as we could. Although, in fairness, the amount of damage getting spat out every round.
Especially from Daron. Daron was a fucking animal for damage. He was a Nova bomb. Just, I don't know why I gave you misery. That thing was what was it? It was agony, misery, and torment. That was the three stages of it.
Torment was the final form.
The final form.
I mean, here's the thing. Torment was very much fun, but when you gave me agony, I was like, so this is where the shark is really going to jump. Because all I wanted was just a second barrel on my crossbow so I could fire it twice between reloads.
Yeah,
You're like,
I had
Here,
intentions.
take
for it.
5. I'm like, I was like, oh, awesome. I was back in my mind, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. What?
And I was right.
What? Yeah, it was definitely something I was like, yeah, artificers are kind of cheap in their damage output, so I was like, at higher levels, you're gonna be in trouble. So I thought, yeah, let's beef them up now. And kind of sad to know that Cirque and Willett died like a year after the campaign technically ended. So it's old age, man.
I mean,
Yep,
everybody has to
old age.
die
I
eventually.
mean, hey, I gave him a push and give him extra time. He decided, nah. So
Yeah,
that's his choice.
he as far as that NPC was concerned, his development was meant to be. Even if you guys came back to try and help him survive, he would have just chosen because he'd known he's given everything he could in his life in that short 74-year span that he's created, he has learned, and he has taught enough to leave a small legacy which will continue on. And that was
Oh,
it.
Before we
yeah.
get too far off track, though,
Oh, yeah,
we
back to
have
characters.
Yeah,
definitely
I
gone
mean,
like
I
way
mean,
off to the
I
right.
mean, we're still discussing NPCs and characters and how they would go and building upon that. I mean, in terms
Well, I was
of
gonna.
like, I mean, Rook's already gone over how he creates his characters, but what's Jeeves and what's Kenny's sort of take on this? What is your guys' like method of building your own PCs? Do you start from an idea that just sort of gets built upon, like snowballs in effect, or use an image, or like you see a piece of like I don't know media, like a show, or you want to emulate something?
Jeeves.
Uh, Most of the time when a character pops into my head,
Mhm.
it's either a class and race combination, and I build from that, or it's I have a goal, and what can I build with that goal?
Mhm.
Coroner was very much of the I have a goal
Mhm.
um, idea, and this was before we went with the we're going to go extra dark, we're going to go extra challenge.
Mhm.
That's when Coroner started from an idea to all right, and now he's got a class, and now he's got a race, and now he's got some features,
Mhm.
and here's an image that fits with all of that, and now we've got a name.
Yeah,
I still don't have a backstory, but
backstories can take time. I mean, to fully
yeah,
flesh out and realize a character, you sometimes don't get it until maybe a couple sessions in, maybe up to 10 sessions in, or even more. It depends on how that character interacts with the world and how that is returned. So that can actually help create
oh,
certain scenarios.
absolutely. Character interactions, especially between NPCs,
Mm-hmm.
how the NPCs see the character
Mm-hmm.
and what the character has done in its past.
Mm-hmm.
That that can really form a character's backstory better even than some players create their own backstories.
Yeah. It's always a good way to start with that sort of snowballing idea of just I would call that like Lego design. So you've got two blocks and you're going to stack them up as high as you can, build something out of it. Uh, and Rook's got that sort of the vault idea where it's a sort of like unscrew and see what I can find and will this work? And then yeah, it's always a good style I find to keep building, even if it's incomplete at the point of presentation. It's always good to build upon it. And yeah, that only leaves Kenny. What's your character design mantra, as it were, or way you usually do it?
When it comes to characters for D&D, I am fucking weird. Because I am super lax.
Uh-huh.
I only look at like a couple main points when I'm making a character.
Mhm.
So one, I always want my character to mesh with the party for the most part. I don't mind there being like some conflict in there.
Mhm.
Conflict between players that you're used to, like behind their characters that you're used to and you understand this, just like fun back and forth RP, like
Mhm.
between say Henry and Lucius.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that type of conflict. It's funny, it kind of breaks things up a little bit.
Yeah.
I always try to add, even if my character doesn't think it's funny, I always try to add something to my characters that will make other people laugh or like lighten the mood
Mm-hmm.
somewhat. Just because, if you just everybody's serious and you keep going and it's always serious, eventually that's just like it's just too much. You
Yeah.
got to break it up.
You gotta have that
Consistently.
comic relief, as it were.
As for like designing them,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my characters have a lot of aspects of myself in them. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'll do if I want to make a character, so like Henry,
Mm-hmm.
I looked at what everybody else in the party was making. I was like, all right, what do I feel like doing this campaign? I kind of felt like doing a cleric because it's been a while since I've played a cleric.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, we're not doing healing this campaign, so I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to Moo about doing like a paladin, and at first when I brought it up to you, I was like, just like remove lay on hands if you want. Like, if you don't want healing in the campaign, I don't care. Just like bounce it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Henry is the first paladin I've ever played,
Mm-hmm.
or the second. I don't jump around to the other classes a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then backstory wise, I was just wondering, like, asked around, like, where in the world would this make sense for him to be? I came up with a backstory to explain why, he isn't in a dwarf family, because I think some aspect of mystery in your backstory is always good
Mm-hmm.
because it gives the GM a lot of free range to just be like, all right, he literally doesn't know who his actual family is. What
Mm-hmm.
can I do with that? Well,
Yeah.
there's a good amount.
I've already got that hanging in the wings, waiting to just pounce. But that'll be later on. That'll be like maybe level 5, give or take, which is like 30 plus sessions away. That's the intention.
Yep, I've never
But
been this. I've never been level 1 for this long.
Yeah, you're gonna be at level 1 for a little bit longer than this. Maybe about 5 sessions or so.
as far as like development goes, though, while I think a backstory is good, and I think my personal opinions on backstories, I think you should leave things in there for your GM to do things with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be even an extremely simple backstory,
Mm-hmm.
but just something that's like a backstory to me isn't even something for Moo or for the GM. It's
Mm-hmm.
more a stepping stone for me
Yeah.
to know, like, all right, this is where I kind of want my character to go. This is where he is stepping off from.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of like realistic connections and character development, if this was a real person,
Mm-hmm.
would it take to get from him to there? So like if we take campaign 3 as an example,
Mm-hmm.
we started out with rookies.
Yeah.
Rookie, I already came into rookie knowing I wanted to be a paladin,
Yeah.
knowing that that's where Henry was going to go if he lived to level 1. He hit level 1, got his stuff for being a level 1 paladin.
Mm-hmm.
In no way did he immediately change to like acting paladin like in any way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like all he did was found out, and he said in character, sometimes when I pray now, it seems like Helm heals people. He
Yeah.
has no fucking idea what lay on hands is, but we're working towards that.
Yeah. I've
And I do think that for anyone watching this,
mm-hmm.
I should lay out a couple of things that I'm sure will bug some people about Henry. I look at alignment and I look at paladins a lot differently than the standard, like, lawful good is you always have to do good under the guidance of the law no matter what. My lawful good characters, the way that I look at alignment, could very well do some of the most evil acts in the game,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that it is fallen in line with their beliefs.
Yeah.
Like I'm a much
That's
more very in depth into the alignment rather than a
yeah.
look at it and that's what it means sort of person.
Yeah. Obviously, people take alignment in a different way for certain characters. Like if I was to make Henry in that way, I would have put him as lawful evil because he believes that he is in the right, whereas actions say otherwise. So it's kind of that balance. That's why the Raven Queen is considered an evil presence, but she's just doing her job of taking people into the afterlife. That's a key example. So she feels she's doing the right job, but other people see it as a scary thing. And nah, that's it.
And the other big point for Henry that I think that I should address now is in the future, I am sure that Henry will come across members of the Helm Church, and in the future, I'm sure they will. Something will happen where there'll be an argument between him and the church or something. And a big point that I look at, and this is my view on paladins, is a paladin doesn't necessarily have to be in good favor at all with the church of their god. Because when I look at a paladin, a very crucial and I think very interesting part of a paladin is they gain their powers and can lose their powers in a campaign based on their god. So in my thoughts, and this will be Henry's thoughts eventually when it happens as well, is I don't care if the church is mad at me. Fuck you guys. The god is the one that gave me the power, and I still have the power. So obviously, I'm not doing too much too wrong.
In the sort of aspect of paladins, it's not entirely, it's your oath to that god. So if you break your tenets, which I believe we wrote out, I can't quite recall when we designed
did
it.
write out tenets, but funnily enough, Henry's never made an oath. He's just kind of always believed in Helm and kind of followed by Helm's general guidelines where he doesn't need to break them to do what he
Isn't
needs
it?
to do.
The oath probably won't take
Oh,
until 3rd level, which is when
Yeah,
you make
Yeah.
the decision.
that's what I thought as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like at the first 2 levels. I think second level you get Divine Smite. You're sort of tapping into a sort of pious intent, so your connection to your religion is strong enough to manifest a power. And then at 3rd level, you sort of have a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a progressive idea of where you want to assign yourself in that religion. So, like, if you wanted to be a conqueror paladin, you would say, I'm going to conquer unjust lands to protect the weak. So you would go off and fight against, I don't know, the Crimson Queen of Degrallen or something like that. That's kind of an idea. Yeah.
But I figured I'd bring it up now because
Yeah.
I know that
But-
I've definitely had troubles in the past playing like clerics, and people are like, "Why are you arguing with the church?" I'm like, "Fuck the church. What?
Like,
Churches can be just as corrupt as any other organization. I don't gotta
Yeah.
like these
I
motherfuckers."
was about to say the same thing. There are probably a few other things about the subclass that will make a few people angry, but you know what? It was designed that way.
Bridges will cross later.
Water under the bridge and all that. Yeah, it's good. We've managed to fill at least an hour so far, guys. That's been good. Is there any sort of I mean, I pitched questions to you guys. You got any questions for me and what sort of ways that you're expecting me to develop your characters or take certain NPCs into account?
Well, I'll take this approach for you, Mo.
Yeah.
I trust you. If you're going to toss something my way, feel free to do so.
Definitely.
So I see if you're going, because I've been half expecting you to throw I've been half expecting you to throw some of my backstory in my face previously, a bit like you did in campaign 1. So I do expect to eventually run into, well, Spitz's parents again. If you need more detail on his family and home life, just send me a PM and I'll expand it a little.
We'll need to touch on potentially what the sort of idea behind the tribes will be, where you're tribal mother came from. Who eating chips?
Oh, that's Rook.
That's me.
He's just opened the package.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yes, cracking
when you're
open. Hey,
when
bro,
you're hungry, you're hungry.
you're not you when you're hungry.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how this works out. Oh, I know I put a bit of a challenge on you on account that, with regards to the orc tribe that Spitz's mom comes from, notably the orcs are brown like tree bark.
There is a place that I have kind of grasped where they will be. They're definitely not from the Kaivan tribe, who are in Elysia. They've got slightly more sort of pallid green skin, so it's that sort of dark, muddy forest green color, sort of like that dark bark color instead. So they're slightly
Yeah,
different,
Yeah,
different culture.
Yeah, like dark tree bark, probably probably tree bark with perhaps amber-ish eyes, because like Spit's eyes are like amber, like you can like if he opens his eyes at night, you could probably see them better than the rest of them.
I can have the same mentality for orcs as I do tieflings. Like, it depends on where your heritage comes from. So like, or where like that tribe has grown and developed. So if you go to say part of Aelnoth, they'll have that sort of strangely icy skin that's kind of that weird bluish ice color, with that sort of strange hint of green that used to be there, sort of pasted through them. That's like environmental, mostly. So I'm gonna have to take that into account for tribes. So it's developing. That will be good, I think. A little bit of world building.
Cool it'd be very cool if we can do that.
Yeah, I'll work on it. Get the time.
I think rather than ask you about how you plan to develop Henry from your side, because I would rather that kind of stuff be a surprise for me. I kind of want to take it as it comes, because I think that not having prior information to at least some things, like some of the bigger things, yeah, if you want to hit me up and then we'll discuss that,
Yeah.
absolutely. But like the smaller stuff, I think that a lot of your character development and stuff comes from how you react to things on the fly, and like sticking with that as being how your character would react to that situation. Instead, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the party so far? Like from our start in a near to our travel to the town that I will never remember the name of.
Tiberton?
Yeah.
When you start in a near
interactions with people, that sort of thing,
Yeah. You're starting a near. That was janky to the start. I'm always bad at starting things off because I'm always like, don't want to make it too like sticking two ends of like the same jigsaw piece together and trying to make it work. So
Well, don't worry, that first episode will never see the light of day.
yeah, you'll never see it ever.
Mistakes there.
Yeah,
Episode 2 is better anyway. Enjoy it.
Episode 2 is definitely the bees is the best thing about it. Yeah, I think your guys' interactions with the world around you so far in a near, it was very much cut and go for a while. It was very cookie cutter encounters, mostly just give and take for a couple of sessions. Slowly trying to develop something there, with, like, for example, Merzeni, the priestess of Helm. She was meant to be a sort of figurehead for you guys to like. She was meant to be like your Obi-Wan Kenobi to Rudrick's sort of Sith Lord sort of situation. So like you have an option to go either way and do bad things or do helpful things. So there was an option there to do that. And seeing that small interaction, despite the fact that chase scenes occurred during that time, and I think you guys threw me through a few hoops, just deciding to do up sticks and leave. That threw me through a few hoops for a bit, and it kind of stressed me out for a week before I could develop things. So I went, okay, send him to Lindenwood. So there's a place that sort of grounded at that place, and I thought, okay, going to treat this as the true start to the campaign. So level 1, bish bash bosh, and there's an objective in mind, a simple, straightforward objective, which I applaud you for because it makes my life a bit easier. Like, okay, they have to get point A to point B. They're going from Lindenwood to Vatha, easy as pie, but not really. You have to go through a forest, which is full of monsters and spirits. So it was good.
There will always be challenges.
Yeah.
Although, in fairness, I think part of the reason why we did like cut and run as fast as we did was simply because, well, in our characters' mindsets, there was like a shadow monster eating people in the streets. Why would we stay?
Well,
Yeah.
it was a combination of things, I think. The place we called home
Mhm.
was somehow an interment site for the Shadow Beast that somehow we unleashed unknowingly by removing some what we thought was gravity from our back door.
Mhm.
Then Rudik's gang decided to blow up half the city, specifically the inner city, where all the Unity people live.
Mhm.
Uh, that was a thing. And then the Shadow Beast decided to emerge from its interment
Mhm.
and just go out and eat people during day. Or sorry, during the night. As long as there was no direct daylight, people wouldn't be safe.
Mhm.
And all those combination of factors were the catalyst for us to say, life's been a challenge, things are getting weird, and now there are explosions. We may not be safe, we may not live through the next moon cycle. It's best to just go.
Yeah.
And then where do we go? Well, there is another big city on the other side of the continent.
Yeah.
So, the nearest big city, let's have a look. Maybe we can make a name for ourselves there.
Yeah. It's definitely what's the word? It's kind of like coming up from nothingness. So you've lived in this drab place that's full of horrible people, and you decided, enough is enough. You should move. But the way you sprung it on me, I wasn't anticipating it. I was like, oh, okay, plan time. So I have developed enough for you guys to just explore your paths, essentially. But you are in a location where I have planned for a while, so you'll have a lot of activities or quests that might occur here, and get some
Plus,
nice
if your
character
threat
building.
holds true, we'll be going back apparently.
Potentially. I've already set a little hook there just for Lucius because he wants to help out Boomer and Wiseman. So there's a hook there already. It's just a matter of adding a couple of more just to pull the net in and tie you back. But the moment,
Yeah, net I ruined by rolling 2 good on athletics check.
that net is very much loose at the moment. I'm just waiting for an opportunity to give you a good enough reason to go back. But at the moment, I can't really think of a good enough one. The mass exodus, as it were, it's still quite fresh. It's not even been a week since you've left.
Exactly. We have no reason right now to risk our safety and our sanity to go back to Anir.
Not to mention, it was dangerous enough getting here.
Yeah.
So I imagine none of us are excited to go back into the wilderness.
And that
At least
too.
not without one of us actually having the survival proficiency.
Yeah.
Which I will work on during my time in Tiverton if I can, have the time for it. I will pick up the proficiency. But at the moment, we ain't getting much done.
As for continuing for Kenny's question, your interactions, like outside of Anir, when you went to Lindenwood and talked to the Meadows, there was a nice bit of backstory meeting that RP, so you had familiarity from one person, so it sort of stretched out a little bit, which was nice. You got a little bit of character backstory just from those two interacting, which was quite nice. It was a short stay, albeit, but they will perhaps show up again. They might be contacted more. No doubt Henry will go back and hand them a sending stone or a stone of minds if he ever finds one. Or the
Give me-
cube.
Give me a stone of mines right now.
I'm not
want
gonna.
it.
Do you want
I
a
mean,
wall?
tell me backstory.
Ah,
You do realize we'd just get robbed and murdered if we had one, right?
Look,
Yeah.
I don't want the wall. He asked me how I would move it.
It's just
All
a
right.
hand cart. I fucking
Clear
lost it.
differences.
That's a good example of very strong character development path with interaction. What I've noticed with every single one of you, you've all got your different ways of interacting. I think Spitz has the more presence, sort of working on his side. Henry's got that sort of dumbass charm that just sort of befuddles people and makes them sort of agree just to get rid of him, which is great. Or it makes them disagree, and there's a long bit of RP where there's back and forth all the time. That's fun. Coroner, I find, is very much the strong-minded businessman type that likes to cut to the chase, wants to get back to his work, trying to perfect his craft so he can keep growing and eventually, I don't know, own like a franchise, an empire of blacksmithing, and be pretty much renowned for it. Lucius, I have no idea. Lucius just gets into trouble all the time.
Yeah.
Lucius,
He can't put 9 lives and he's got 7 left, so.
yeah, Lucius just seems to fall into trouble. Probably because, one, he's not a common race in Kagara. He's very much an outsider. Tabaxi's, lore-wise, they migrated from Nexalia in the Empire over. There's not many of them. So they are very far and few. So I think that plays to him. His exotic nature definitely gives him that almost a amazed edge when he interacts, but it's his alien-like what's the word, persona, as it were. Is he does not sound like the sort of person that belongs in your party, but he is. So he's definitely the one that people would sort of point out as perhaps being the leader, but you just sort of turn and point to Coronar, and that sort of creates a nice, almost like a very particular dynamic I've noticed between you all. You always, Coronar always likes to stay back, but you guys always point him out as being the boss, and that, I never react it, but NPCs are almost astounded because they automatically assume that Lucius is the leader because he's more well-spoken and seems more educated. But at the moment, you're all wearing drab-ass clothes that are torn and muddy and bloody, so they're like,
Yeah,
okay,
close.
yeah, gonna buy some branded clothes, courtesy of the Blooming Rose. But
But, my first goal was actually to get something to eat and
mhm.
take a bath, take a rest, and then explore the city.
Yeah, see, that's my observation. It's very acute understanding of what needs to be done in time, so you can go do things that you want to do, which is quite a nice mindset for a character to have, especially in the environment that you're walking into.
Yep, there's a reason why Coronar is the boss.
It will play a lot more into the favor once the sort of I don't know, mercenary camp system starts to come into place. So there will be finally camp rules for that as well, which will be good. It'll give you a greater benefit.
One thing I've noticed is all of our characters are primarily physical based.
Mm-hmm.
We prefer mainly to use weapons rather than magics.
Yeah.
So when magics are gonna be more prevalent, it's gonna be interesting to see how our characters react. We saw a little bit of that yesterday with Henry and the ever-moving staircase.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking on bringing up. But your interactions with the unknown, they're very much, what's the word, human. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Why is it doing this? And how is it doing it? And that's a good thing. Like ghosts and stuff, like you, every one of you are like, Bright is weird. We ain't going near him. He's not coming with us, and he gets arrested because he's weird.
We all just stood and waved. We're like, all right, see ya.
Yeah, I had no idea how I would react with Bright, so I just left them be.
Yeah. I mean,
Didn't inter-
at the end of the day, he's a walking corpse. So it
Exactly.
kind of makes sense to be like, we don't want anything to do with this guy. He's weird. We don't understand how he's alive. Well, alive in a sense. How he's moving and
Yeah,
talking to
Spitz
us.
was basically keeping an eye on him.
Mhm.
Spitz was concerned about him, Bright,
Mhm.
but he figured that with how busted up his host was, he's sure that if Bright got violent, they could handle it.
That's the intent. Like that's it's a very much an NPC that I was expecting to that acts friendly, but the host is very much not. Now has a very good reason not to be happy with you guys, particularly a particular cat person. It's like, oh, I'm saving you, Stab. For someone that's not a doctor, it's kind of sus. It's like I saw him vent. Catman would be
Yep,
sus.
and we all just universally
What the fuck?
agree that he was probably in the right.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I think he's on the right. It's like, no, I'm saving him. It's like, it doesn't look like it from here. There,
It doesn't look like you're saving him.
yeah, it's that's a very fun part of your interactions, inter-party wise. It's just like you see someone doing something really weird, out of the ordinary, or in a skill set that you're not familiar with, and it looks suspicious. Your reactions are pretty correct. Like the medical
Yeah.
check, pretty accurate, and one, it's an accurate way to fix a collapsed lung, but from your perspective as not really knowing medicine or practices to save someone, that looks very suspicious.
Yeah, like it's fun playing. Yeah, one of the fun things about Spitz is that he is uneducated. I won't call him stupid. He's a bit slow, but he's uneducated.
Yeah.
So I get to approach these things with like a sense of like perhaps refreshment. Because like with like if I was still playing Daron,
Mhm.
for starters, he would have checked the sigil for magic
Mhm.
back then.
Yeah.
And he would have known what the knife stab would have done.
Yeah. So there.
However, Spitz doesn't know any of this stuff, so he's just like,
Wasn't expecting that. Didn't know it did that.
"Yep." The Spitz knows he's not very well. He said he thinks he isn't smart. He's just not educated.
Yeah.
So he just will shrug and go with whoever looks like they know what they're doing is actually doing. I mean, he would not tell Splinter Eye Vandal how to make a bomb.
I don't think anyone would want to tell Splinter Eye Vandal how to make a bomb. You just make bigger bombs.
Well, somebody did, and half of
And you gave him
good
nails
chunk
for
of-
it.
yep, and a good chunk of the inner city district paid for it.
Yeah. I as far as I've seen so far, you guys are doing really well with the inter-party stuff, and I am starting to like that you're wanting to do a bit more like campfire stories as a part of the actual mechanic, just to get a little bit more backstory and interaction. Very nice.
Well, ever since Rook went over that in the first time that we were ever camping and he went over that, it sparked that idea in my head. And I thought back to other campaigns and stuff that I've watched, other groups do that have been streamed and stuff. And I've seen people kind of do like well, let's take turns. Like every night, one person tells a bit about their backstory. And I was like, I don't want to force people into that. And I don't want to kind of make people uncomfortable by saying, let's get the backstories out there. But I figured I would jump up and take the lead and just be like, ideally, I want to hit die here, but fuck it, dude. Let's do some backstory sharing.
Yeah, it's
that's gonna
fun.
be so much better.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like a bit of an interlude.
Yeah.
And the best part is since we know each other, it's an easy conduit for roleplay because players can ask questions.
Mhm.
And since I imagine a lot of our stories Spitz will know about or have been part of, for the two of us, you could chime in with additional details that are just on the fly and made up, and I'll roll with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even if it's not part of your backstory, if you want to make something up on the fly, do it. If it makes where your character wants to go that much more interesting, and you get to have something that maybe even someone that knows you doesn't know about you, explosion of RP potential. Even if you,
I know that's why I have my little list of again, minutia.
Yeah.
Mainly, I add or remove things as I think about the character. Like I did decide, I did not decide that Spitz didn't like fish or wine when you brought up the fish one. I thought I was like, let's see, would fish? I was like, yeah, would Spitz try this fish wine? Does he like fish? I'm thinking, probably not.
But yeah, the
Would,
the Ibor fish, Iborine salmon, just big.
well, here's the thing. Spitz is a pragmatic in this way. And I imagine it's not the first. I imagine he's been hungry before on the streets,
Take what you get.
so he takes what he can get. Like if there's only fish, he'll hold his nose, suck it up, and eat that fish.
It's good fish.
But if given any other option, he'll do that. So I'm just like, so like I think diet can tell a lot about a character.
Yeah, and his
Like,
is
Spitz
protein.
is big, bulky, has like muscles. So I imagine he eats like like a teenage boy.
It's protein,
Just lots of like
carbs,
protein,
everything.
meat, carbs.
And he
root
farts like
maybe
an
root
animal.
vegetables.
Oh.
Well, I try to keep that out of RP, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that's fun. Like
I will say one thing to touch back on the stories for a moment, real quick.
I was about to come back to it.
It's been a long time since I played a bard, so don't worry. I'll shake off the rust, and storytelling will actually become an actual story.
I mean, you don't have to specifically tell a story at the campsite. You can like take a moment out of like something that's happened and try and relate it back to something or make something up.
Oh, I know, and I probably will at
What-
times, but I like the idea that the campsite thing's kind of like a set aside its own thing while everybody's kind of winding down. You know?
There was a very I think I touched on it in the Dungeon Master's Diary, like the one I did on Friday, and it was if you can develop RP from your experiences in the adventure. Say like Henry's gone down like twice to very strong creatures in some respect, and some creepy twig people. That could reflect on something, or it could create like a certain perspective on like how fragile you guys are at the moment, or like, give you like a sense.
Spitz is like worried about Henry getting taken down that fast within like such quick succession.
Even if it's not spoken RP, I do see it. It's like you guys instantly jump to the person that you almost assign yourselves to that person. I see Spitz always running to Henry before anyone else. I've noticed that a couple of times, just to make sure, but because Henry's always protecting Coronar, and then Spitz will run to Henry, and Henry will run to Coronar, and Lucius is left on his own until the last side. It's like we all know each other, but you're the weird guy. You're going last.
Well, honestly, I mean, just from like a character perspective, Henry will always run to Coronar because he has faith in Spitz. He's fought alongside Spitz a lot. He knows Spitz can hold himself, and he's hired to protect Coronar.
Yeah.
But if he wasn't, like saying the bear attack, if he wasn't dropped and it was Yoshi that he went after instead, his job isn't necessarily just Coronar, it's to make sure everyone gets out. So he would have like hightailed it to him as well.
Yeah, and it's a good example of action RP, which is just based on what a character wants to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know if any of you have any more questions for myself.
Actions will speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Again, I believe Lucius is the weird one for now. I imagine eventually, like in RP, he will slide into the party groove, air quotes.
I think we're starting to see it start to happen. It's slowly becoming a movement, and it's kind of annoying that Yoshi isn't here to like counteract what I'm about to say, because he could just clap back and be like, it's not kind of like that. But I don't know if you guys have noticed that he has moved from being this hoity-toity emissary, and he has fallen down, and that last session was a clear indication that he can try and talk himself out of his actions, but with you guys, you're no way like the sort of people he deals with normally, and it's a lot harder for him to interact with normal people than it is with people that have facade-like expectations that you can just puncture like a paper.
Oh, yeah, and Yoshi did make a good point here. He is a scaredy cat.
Quite
Yeah,
literally.
Lucius tries to avoid fights and combat. Granted, Spitz avoids fights when it's like something obviously ridiculous and magical. Like he did not want to deal with the will-o-wisps.
I didn't want you to
Maybe
deal with
Betty-
them either. They were just there. And a Thoranian spirit, which is kind of like a will-o-wisp, but touch on it later.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that stuff later.
So
I did
it's
think it was pretty apt to bring up the Red Shield story, though, and kind of because I was kind of thinking along the same lines. Moo was like Henry's gone down a lot in these couple sessions, and it's like, well, what can I tie that back to? And I was like, well, he literally in his backstory, I wrote up him getting a nickname for getting the shit kicked out of him by keeping people safe.
yeah. I imagine and hey, I imagine that's one of the things, one of the reasons why Spitz and Henry are like good friends because again, Spitz respects somebody who can take an ass whooping.
Yeah. Jeeves, did you now that you have returned, did you have any questions for Moo?
I'm not sure, actually.
And that's fine.
Most of the things that we don't really know yet, either we're gonna return to, or we don't know that we're not gonna return to it. So, if I were to ask some of the things that I am curious about, it may actually come up in a couple of sessions instead. So I'd rather wait for that.
I mean,
I feel that.
yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, you don't want
Well, I
to
am-
spoil the surprise as it is.
Yeah,
as
I
it were.
don't want to spoil surprises, even if we don't know if it's going to be a surprise or not.
Yeah.
But I am curious about, at some point in my smithing career with Coronar,
Mhm.
I want to start figuring out how to add minor enchantments
Mhm.
to the weapons I create.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to how Coronar is going to learn that.
Yeah. What Coronar's a 10 int, I believe. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're below the standard threshold, which is usually 13 to learn magic, usually. But that doesn't mean necessarily that you're enchanting through a magic means. You've got enchanted materials that you can work with. So I did take that into consideration in the sort of diagram hunting sort of side quests for yourself. I do have a few NPCs that will work to help with that, sort of show you methods of creating higher quality equipment that could be considered enchanted, like +1 items, etc.
Yeah, that's one thing that where I want to steer my character towards is you can make 1,000 normal swords, but they'll always remain normal swords.
Yeah.
You'll never stand out in a massive crowd if all you have is normal swords.
And what could be done? I will probably have to go over with you at some point. There is something I'm working on to see how successful you are in creating something that's higher qualities. If you're on the road, that is, or an under-equipped smith, depending.
I'm not entirely new to magic because I do have that cantrip, booming blade.
Yeah.
Which is magical. So.
Yeah, magic here. It's just really weak magic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not like a 9th level fireball or something, or a 10th level triple spelled disintegrate with heightened spell on top and all that kind of stuff.
And then impact. And then
Actually, I do have a question about Coronar Jeeves. How exactly did he learn this cantrip? Like,
That's a good question. Background base is because of the guild artisan, so it may be that a former master taught me that. Maybe the person that either taught me fighting, or that could have been a paladin that taught me fighting instead of a standard master at arms,
Yeah.
or it could have been the blacksmith that taught me blacksmithing, or weaponsmithing in particular.
It
I'm just
was.
wondering because, like, if you're like a guild artisan, if you're gonna learn a cantrip,
Mhm.
something like prestidigitation, thaumaturgy, or mage hand would, make more sense. Is they're, something up they're like utility on cantrips.
Well,
Booming blade is actively something you use for combat.
and that's something I was going to touch on once Jeeves and me sort of figured out this sort of why or who he learned from. And I think I know kind of the right smith that would know that sort of ability, and as to a reason why he has Booming Blade. It's not the spell, it is a technique of smithing. If you look up like traditional like Japanese smithing, they use rhythm and like sound, which could be
Yep.
a reason why this effect happens. He's using that same technique and he swings and it just creates a reverb effect. It could be that, but we'll develop upon it.
Another way you could develop it too that could be interesting, Jeeves, is you are a smith, yes, but you're also a fighter, which means you've gone through some kind of training in your life to wield the weapons that you make.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
nothing says that the person that taught you what you know about being a fighter was a full fighter. They could have been a mix between fighter and caster.
Yeah,
And
that's why I suggested maybe the fighter that taught me all my fighting skills wasn't actually a fighter class itself.
Could have been
Maybe he
him.
was well trained in all weapons, but himself maybe a paladin or a war mage or something else. There is so many
Could be
options.
an Eldritch Knight. They get
Could have been
cantrips.
an Eldritch Knight. So
so there's
there
a
are
lot of cool
many options.
possibilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's infinite possibilities.
I will say one thing though, from experience, because I know that you said yourself that like backstories are like not a super strong point.
Mhm.
Is one thing from experience is when you write up your backstory, no matter what, literally everything else doesn't matter. If you are happy with it, you can make it work. You can always
Oh,
make it work.
absolutely.
Yeah, uh,
But the main point is you got to be like, if you're even questioning one thing in your backstory, chuck it out, rewrite it until you're happy with it, man.
yeah,
Like whatever, because it's essentially like I said, like it's good for a GM, and a GM needs a backstory to really like get in depth with your character. But in my eyes, a backstory is much more for the person making the character.
yeah. It's
Yeah, true. You learn so much about your character if you just end up building a complete backstory.
it, when speaking of like, backstory, like in it's never set in stone. You can decide to change it and just let your GM know. But like, I changed this so it benefits both myself and you for like creating like a potential encounter that relates to it. So you don't have to be like, okay, I've done X amount in Y time and I've ended up at Z. You can be like, I went from A to F, but I don't know what's in between, and I'll work on that, or etc. So it's never like
Yep.
stamped and sealed. It's not signed, sealed,
Good.
delivered. And yes, it's never like that.
We actually have a good example of that in this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I went to go talk to Targ, and then I realized Moo had done like a tools proficiency for fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew from the start of creating my character that I wanted him to fish as a hobby. And when he was like, "Well, have you trained with Targ?" I was like, "Well, I don't have it written up, but now I have."
Yeah, you
It
find
makes sense.
pinpoints, and you're like, that's quite a good idea, and Monet is a fishing village. Made sense. It's local, and you probably went there as a kid and learned, so it made sense.
Yep. And right now I can add to my backstory that Booming Blade was taught to me by either a blacksmith who taught me blacksmithing, or a fighter of swords,
Yeah.
the person that trained me with all my weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could even go the super rare third line of thinking with it and go super nuts with your backstory. Who says that you didn't just figure it out
Yeah.
while you were training with weapons, with the knowledge that you had, and maybe something happened, you had like a thought in your head, you wanted to try something out, and maybe you just did it.
Oh, I just love to.
And there is even another route where during smithing, I hammered whatever I was creating in such a way that it caused the effect of booming blades to occur upon that inanimate object,
Mhm.
which then, as when you're smithing, you're constantly moving that thing. So if suddenly you strike your hammer, you move the thing and thunder strikes,
Yeah.
right? Or, well, it's the sound of thunder, not the actual
Yeah.
lightning effect itself,
Mhm.
but still,
Yeah.
that is also an option.
There's endless possibilities. Like, if
But
it's grounded in reality.
like
Yes.
the idea that someone taught me
Mhm.
the cantrip, I like that more than it occurring naturally.
Hmm?
Yeah, it's definitely a good place because it is very much grounded in the backstories that you all created because you come from simple backgrounds. You don't have any adventuring sort of time, as it were. Now you do. Technically adventurers now.
Even bought the map. It's a pricey map, but I bought it.
Yeah, because he's taking all 12 gold that you have for simple.
That's just what I had that I was willing to spend on a map. That's not all of the gold. I
You're
still have like 8 left.
you're about to get like a coloring in map of Kagara. Like, I've
I
been
mean, the
here.
only thing I was ever looking
Cover.
for was like just a blank map essentially that I could mark down like the fishing and mining
I still have a
locations.
hard time believing that literally no one has like a basic map.
Because
No,
most of
I
them have
can
been taken into the war as cartographers.
see, I can understand why maps might not be prevalent. Moo, what is wrong with Kagara that no one makes shields? Like one person makes shields and it's for knights
Because
in like the half.
But just like
there is a
party
reason to it.
needs to go to war to make
Well, if
war.
there's a warehouse or if there's like a out there buildings for rent in town, yes, Coronar could probably rent a building, get some metal, hammer one out for you.
Yeah,
There
it is
is
cool.
there are reasons for it, which you might discover next session, which is it not this
The
weekend,
soldiers
but the following.
stole all the shields.
No, there is a. It's only in Kagara that this is a thing, which is the best thing about it because it's a specialized trade, as it were. So you will
Okay.
find out why. But
I did think of during last session, I did think of going to the nice orcish
the
woman
Ketsa?
who has a yeah, Ketsa who has a forge and seeing if she wouldn't mind you using it if you were willing to make me a shield.
You could
Oh, wow.
you could have
I,
asked her to
I
make you a leather shield. It only gives you 1 AC, but it would do it.
still a shield indeed. But I can definitely try to make a metal shield. I mean, how hard can it be, right? Sheet of metal with a couple handles on it.
Yeah, a
Come on,
dinner
it's not
plate.
too sharp. You don't accidentally decapitate yourself.
Just
You know,
he just duct tapes a plate to his arm.
Moo, being realistic with you, I was all down to accept and use that dinner plate as my shield if, only if she had not tried to like blindside me by me paying 5 gold for a plate. If she came back and she was like, "Here, take it for like 5 silver or like a gold," I would have been like, "Well, I mean, it's better than nothing," and I would have taken it.
She's used to a different kind of clientele. She was using an actual technique by salesmen, something I've been taught to do, to deter people that are not supposed to go near that stuff and try and deter, because you know it's not going to be in their best interest. And she just took that and just ramped it to 11 and went, "No, away with you. Goodbye." I just need to think of what this person looks like, and I know I have the strong image of Edna mode, and that's it. That's
when
all
Henry
I see with
makes
her.
it big, he's not buying from her.
Unless he becomes a
Nah.
knight. She won't even. You could be level 40, and she'll be like, "No, you don't have a knighthood. Away with you." He's like, "I could burn this place to the ground and kill your entire family, and you still want to sell it to me?" No. Okay. Walks up.
At least she has standards, you know.
Yeah, she has a specific clientele she wants to cater to. It's all on her.
Yep, useless. Yep, knights of questionable value.
Yeah, it's gonna be funny
She
when
is
the war
very
gets
useful.
closer. She's gonna be having
Sure, she.
no one.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yep, I'm sure that. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, is she at least good?
Oh, I never got to fully describe the knights that were there. They are very well built pieces of armor with regalia and sort of fine like engravings and stuff like that in the armor. So it's very decorative.
Yeah, granted, our standards of Smith is kind of skewed by the existence of, well, Azure Kadrain.
He hasn't been forging for a good while since the start of the campaign. Everyone understands that it's his daughter that is now in charge, and she's pretty much on par with Coronar. She's not the best, but she's definitely got something. She doesn't build guns anymore. Explicitly told
no
not
one-
to make them.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I guess. Asher got bribed with a crossbow lobby.
No,
That's the reason why That's the reason why guns never took off in Discworld.
No, it's more of a moral thing that sort of happened to him over the years. So he's just sort of went, nah.
Yeah, but he went soft on us. That's fine.
He did a sort of strange love thing where he just kind of like, nah. But yeah, if any of you guys have questions for each other, feel free. Oh, you've asked me questions, I've asked you guys questions. Now
Sure.
it's
How did Henry learn Eldritch Blast, Kenny?
Henry learned Eldritch Blast after he had joined the gangs, and you know the gang's a mix-up of everybody. I assume there's a few people in there that know a few varying cantrips and etc. But he learned it from just going on missions with people. He ended up maybe making an acquaintance. I haven't like really in-depth built the gang stuff because I didn't know how much of that we were gonna go into.
Zero
But
now.
I mean, he learned it in the Rascals, probably before you joined. It's a skill that he'd picked up just going on missions with other members of the Rascals to get things accomplished.
Yeah, Spencer's been part of the gang for about 5 years, so Henry's been doing it even longer.
Yeah, Henry moved to Anir from the Meadows at 18, and he is now 27, I think, which is still very young for a dwarf, but in human years, he is very much an adult. Yeah, he is 27. So he was part of the Rascals for 9 years.
Meaning, yeah, they've been doing this a while.
I mean, as long as Anir's been standing, I assume there have been gangs vying for territory there.
And the thing that sort of caused, well, the lead up to that sidetrack, but it's kind of the lead up to that bomb being dropped was because the children is a relatively new factor that the other gangs just didn't want, and everyone paid the price for it. So
Rightfully so. Children
Yeah.
are just fucking
So
creepy.
just to clarify, okay, quick question, Moo.
Mhm.
On account that Spitz knows jack shit about magic. How many cantrips are typically used during gang warfare? Because I don't imagine they're chucking fireballs at each other.
The fingers are known to use magic. They use like things like invisibility and suggestion and sleep and like basically arcane trickery and like illusions and stuff to throw you off for a bit and then get you. In combat, they use it very sparingly. They'll throw a few fire bolts and stuff occasionally. That's it. Mostly mage hand. That's it.
I got it. So I imagine Spitz would know what an Eldritch Blast or a Firebolt, or maybe even a Cone of Cold It, or maybe a the Frostbite cantrip or something like
You'll be
that. But he would
familiar.
not know what a Fireball is.
You'd be
Probably.
familiar what it would look like from people that are trained to do it, but different, more trained magi that have created a personal flair have slightly different appearances to their magics.
Yep. So I know what an Eldritch Blast is. I decide, and in this D&D, if I decide, I'll just punch that guy in the face. Because why not? He's got a magic finger gun that never runs out of ammo. I'll punch him in the face. Hey, in
Back out
D&D, it works. My fists are D6s right now, meaning my punches are as deadly as scimitars.
In fact, cantrip-wise, you probably know the most about Eldritch Blast, seeing as that's the only cantrip I know and we hang out all the time.
I imagine at least once we got drugged and you started shooting bottles with it.
Probably in Gertrude's Tavern at the fucking halflings because they weren't winning against the gnomes. Start blasting fucking beers off the table. Fuckers!
You see, my answer to that is simple. Spitz throws rocks. Rocks are not very dangerous at all.
Yeet!
But when you're a pugilist, you throw rocks harder than you could with a sling.
True.
Yeah, it's all in the fun of the character. I don't know. I think.
Just a question.
It's like the idea I just hurl a wicked stone.
Geez, you had a
That
question?
begs the question. What would happen if we gave you a boulder instead of a rock?
A boulder.
He'd have to make an athletics check before he could throw.
Well, I say, if I could physically carry the boulder, I could use it as a weapon. The beautiful thing about this is this: if it's smaller than my fisticuff damage die, it uses my fisticuff damage die. If it's bigger, well, Boo gets to assign a damage size and type. But if you hand me a boulder and I hold it in both hands, I probably could just, smash somebody up the head with it, like, without issue. Because apparently, I must have learned how to fight on Gertrude's tavern.
And a lot of fights do break out in that tavern.
Chairs, bottles. I would like to think I at least picked up one table.
Yeah, she made you pay for it, but yeah. But definitely. In terms of like, I mean, you can
And
use
knowing
that.
Spitz, if I hit somebody with that table, I probably just give her the money out the unconscious guy's wallet.
Probably, yeah. Any other questions between you guys, or?
It's a good start. Oh, go ahead.
I got a question for Jeeves for Coronar. You said that you had like you've run over like your ideal for what you want Coronar's future to look like.
Yeah.
How like what are your what are your plans, I guess, for your character once we actually find a place that we want to settle down? Like, I'm interested in what kind of path you're going to take because you are effectively the boss, and no matter what, you're going to have the last say. So when we get to the point that we find a place that we want to, start up whatever the forge business is, uh, do you have plans already with your character on like how you want to sort of finance that? If it's through like questing, since we're gaining experience as adventurers now, or if it's going to be
Uh,
like setting up in a market and just trying to knock out what you can until you can afford a place, sort of thing, or
it depends. If we can find enough to keep ourselves busy while also moving towards a place where we can settle down, then we should be able to afford a modest place to stay while also being able to set up and ply my craft. If we have problems acquiring sufficient money, and that really the money part, that's the hard part because you do not know beforehand how expensive it's gonna be for someone to set up your forge so you can use it, right? Um, Great, we brought our anvil with us and we have our tools, but we don't have a forge, and that's the expensive part. The building can be rented, right? It doesn't need to be purchased, so that cost isn't necessarily very high. But a forge that requires some skilled labor to set up, and that's a lot of expenses. Uh, but Moo did say he had ideas for a mobile forge, and if we don't manage to get sufficient funding before we reach a point where we say this is a good place to settle, then yeah, we have to set up for in a market and just get whatever work comes our way. And if we can find some things to do besides setting up for a market, then all the better. So
all
who
right,
knows? It
sounds
may actually rely on you guys to find us a point to do something to earn more money.
sounds good. I was just curious on which direction you're gonna go with the sort of business aspect of things.
Mm.
Hmm. Well, that leaves me with one final question then. In the terms of the business and the way you guys are progressing to try and make a business, what sort of direction are you expecting to go when the war catches up and there's nowhere to run?
Still away from it, the water.
If there is nowhere to run, then the war is already over because then whatever side is losing has given up too much ground to be able to continue the fight. And either they're going to fight to the death, in which case we're dead, or they're going to surrender and, come what may, but the war would end. As long as we can avoid the war, we probably will try it because we have no
Yeah,
interest in being either conscripted or being forced to work at the army camp and potentially risk a run over where the army will be run over so fast that we can't evacuate the camp quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like with Henry, he wouldn't necessarily care if Navaria won the war. Like he's very much outside the war.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
He's just your normal everyday guy. He don't give a shit about the politics or the war or shit. As long as it doesn't affect him, his friends, or his family, the war can just do whatever the war wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if he ended up, if like Novaris won or whatever, and all right, there's all, he would just take it as goes and continue on life.
Okay.
Be like, all right. He just wants to not have to, like, as a normal person in his mind, he just doesn't want to have to do anything with the war.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to go fight in the war. He doesn't want to go work for the war. He doesn't even want to see like soldiers. generally, he's just like, fuck, leave all that shit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For Spitz, the war is just yeah, to him it's not really, for lack of a better term, real. He doesn't rub shoulders with soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't seen any. He hasn't really seen any Novarians yet,
Mm-hmm.
and he's decidedly wants to avoid all any and all conscription or recruiters simply because, well, Spitz doesn't like taking orders from people he respects. Never mind, the army. It's not for him. And his interest would be in avoiding the war, so he doesn't have to fight in it.
Mm-hmm.
The Varians rule the country afterwards. He doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
because to him, all greater authorities are just. He basically sees nations as just bigger gangs.
Hmm.
Really,
Yeah,
And
I
that
think Henry might be
they're
along
just
the same
bigger
page.
gangs.
it differs from what is planned and what we discussed in our initial setup. Is that the plan is eventually the integration of mercenary activity, as it were.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Here's the thing. I still want to do that. It's
Yeah.
like this.
But
At the
what?
moment, they're not that interested.
Yeah. What
But
the
there is a way. But for Spitz personally, there's a way to get him more interested in the war, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
for the mercenary angle. You just have to offer him money.
Yeah.
Because Spitz, here's the thing, is poor, and he wants to be more than poor.
Yeah.
And soldiers' wages are jokes,
Yeah.
but
yeah,
merc money is hella better.
Yeah.
merc
And the,
money is a whole different thing, and I do believe that what we just discussed was the end goal,
Mhm.
setting up shop somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But in between, if we become a mercenary company for a while,
Mhm.
I'm perfectly okay with that. And
Yeah,
Koronov,
the goal can
I,
change.
he just doesn't want to be a part of the main army
Yeah.
encampment
I was about to.
because that's where all the risk and dying is.
Mhm. I was going to bring that up as an aspect of the the course of action is, in my mind, is to drive your characters a little bit towards being like, why would we join the army where we get basically piss and water as pay, where we could just do it ourselves and take no sides and just whoever hires us first, and we build up on that and become a micro nation of like an army and fight whoever we feel like or whoever hires us and pays the most money.
And
And
I'm
that's
absolutely happy with that.
I can get behind that.
And at the same time, you get to apply your skills. Henry can supply ore, so the Corn Army smith the weaponry that will supply you.
Mhm.
and
Spitz will know
that's
where to find the most badass people in the fight pits and hire them on. Lucius can pull the strings with the high and mighty, as it were, or try to, without getting chased.
by, by the way, just to touch on that too, that's not necessarily to say that, I don't want to get involved in that move,
Mhm.
because,
Because
we
I
talked
do.
outside and
Yeah,
you're all
the,
for it. I'm still all for it. It's just that from an RP perspective, I
Mhm.
try to make my characters as real as possible.
yeah,
And there's no way that you could go back to medieval times and be like, hey, peasant, you're going to get conscripted. And they'd be like, all right.
that's one of the key points. Is what point does your commonality and your willingness to avoid the war games of the high and mighty become a part that drives you to try and protect that of which you want to keep protected? I say Henry would want to protect his friends, his family, and the things he cares about, and that would drive
Well,
him to develop
For
a team.
Henry, like the thing that will probably push Henry to going like all in on the merc or the war effort
Mm-hmm.
in some way would be, obviously the war's moving down Kagara. If it ever got within the point that it was starting to look like it's gonna head towards home,
Mm-hmm.
towards Lindenwood, that's where Henry would be like, all right, nah, something's something's got to happen, and I got to do whatever I can
Yeah.
because I don't want my family and my little brothers and
Mm.
sisters getting involved in anything even closely related to that shit.
Yeah. For
Don't think
Spitz, if Henry is serious about it, he'll back him up because hey, best friend in the world. But also, if you want Spitz to participate in this greater conflict, it has to let's be some money involved because
Yeah.
to Spitz, money in Ynir is essentially power.
No,
With enough money, you could get away with almost anything.
Yeah.
So Spitz wants to again create he wants to get rich, create a better life for himself and those he cares about. So if you could give him money, he would be willing. Like if soldiers got paid at the same rate the Phantoms did, for instance, he would have signed up already
And what
because
was
Spitz is not averse to life risking for profit. It just has to be worth the time and effort.
Yeah.
Soldiers get paid nothing when they get injured. They're basically shipped back home to waste away.
Yeah.
Like I imagine a lot of the homeless on the streets in Anir are veterans from the war missing limbs and shit
some of them are?
for basically next to nothing.
Yeah.
If you want Spitz to fight, Spitz better be paid.
What's
And there are multiple types of mercenary styles, right?
Yeah.
And as a group, I do not think we're the front line. We will break the enemy line
Mhm.
for the main army to waltz over them, right? We are not that kind of group.
Mhm.
So
Or
what
probably more like commandos. Like send
Yeah.
these guys in to, deal with complicated tasks or
Mhm.
tough tough
Mhm.
but limited enemy forces. Like you don't send the army to go fight, say, a dragon. You would send your commandos.
we're more likely to accept mercenary work that disrupts the enemy's supply lines than the kind of mercenaries that go all out in the front line, right?
There, I mean, when I developed the system for it, you do have your master agents who will take care of the grittier things for you, where you can direct them pretty much. And yeah, but seeing the characters' outlooks on what would drive them to go into that sort of business. I mean, in my eyes, Cornar would see it as an opportunity to ply his trade and earn a bit of money in the process and get better. Henry would see it.
That means that most of the other business opportunities need to be gone, right?
Yeah.
So
So
it needs a change in the war already before that happens.
yeah, and it would be basically your final call before you settle down, and it might set you up for life, pretty much.
Absolutely.
And for Henry, I think it would be based on the piety towards Helm, protection, and defend that of which is close, which is my assumption. And Spitz, it's all about the bling. Lucius is probably more akin to being able to wiggle into more high society, I would think, and try and use his influence.
Part of the thing with Henry is definitely the bling, though, because he very much is like in it to make money because he wants to help his family.
Yeah.
The Meadows take on a large amount of kids always, so even if they don't want him to help, he's gonna help.
It's like you can't send back 1,000 gold now, can you? Because that's going to take a lot more money to send back.
Exactly.
So, but I think we have made to our time frame tonight, guys. We've hit the 2 hour mark. So yeah. If there's anything else you want to say before we close off the podcast, feel free.
No, it's a great start, and I look forward to in the next time we can do this and which topic we'll approach for the next time.
Yeah, it's definitely.
And it's nice to know that we're very least lining up our ideas of where we want the campaign to go.
Yeah.
Mainly Merc stuff I want to happen. We just gotta find out the right motivations.
Yeah.
Luckily for you, I guess, our motivations seem fairly simple. Except for
Match our
Lucius, you have to talk that out with Yoshi.
Oh yeah, I'll figure that one out. Don't worry about it.
He wrote it in Discord. He's rather selfish. If he can avoid mercenary and military work, absolutely. If he can maintain his emissary status, the better.
So we'll definitely work on that, and hopefully we'll get around to that. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say before we close out?
I'm good.
It's pie that I just got. It's delicious.
If you're watching this, I hope you enjoy our character's journey as much as I am sure I will enjoy playing the journey.
And
And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks
Mhm.
for the next session.
yeah, it's definitely going to be in 2 weeks. That will bring to the announcements that just to clarify, there is no Dungeon Master's Diary this week or session this week due to life stuff. But I will definitely be coming back with maybe another Phylactery episode. We'll catch up there and work on a different topic that time. But we will be back in 2 weeks for the session on Dungeon Master's Diary. And feel free to join the community Discord. If you ever look around in the About section, you'll find the link straight to it. And as always, stay safe out there, adventurers.